Thank you for tuning in to the Patricia Show. My name is Patricia. Please press like and subscribe and share this video with someone who you know need it. This is part 3 of my spiritual life. Okay, so obviously I've had a long spiritual life, but I'm going to try to just cram things in and condense it so I won't have to make a part 5. Okay, so I'm at the part now that I'm being taught from within. So all of my teaching now is coming from within, no longer books when the voice is telling me that's true, this true, no longer that. So, okay, so then that's the first thing I'm being taught is about God. You know, where is God? Where does he reside in our body? Why is everything of one? Just things like that. I'll begin to have about crystals. I think crystals was the next thing coming in my life, just showing me how everything is alive and how that God force that was in me is in everything. And then I got a demonstration and showing me how it was in the crystals. Just different things like that was really happening, but really deep, information that was coming to me. And then I'm still in a space where I'm still learning, right? Because I'm not at the point yet where, I'm just learning a lot. I'm really, really learning a lot. If I had any questions, I would simply answer it. They very rarely, sometimes it would answer it instantaneously, but sometimes it would take a day, sometimes an hour, whatever. But it always came to me when my mind was not on that question. So when the answer came to me, it caught me off guard because I wasn't knowing the answer was coming at that time. So for me, it was like, okay, so that couldn't have been me. You know what I mean? It was given to me in a way that I would never doubt the information that I was being given. I never doubted it. Now, I wanted them to teach me about creation. How was the human physical body created? They did eventually teach me that, but it wasn't in my time because I wanted to know, like, can you, right away, like, okay, because I always wanted to know, like, how was we created, but it didn't. So when I wanted to know something, it didn't necessarily teach me right then. I think it was several years later before it really started showing me about creation. And then eventually it went to this light to teach me about this light, or about light. And in 2016, this light started pouring through the top of my head. And every time the light would come in, I would start crying. And I think I've told you this part before. I would start crying because the light was like clearing me, purifying me, but it was much, much more. The light was so overwhelming, filled with a love. It was just so much love in this light. And the light was coming directly from God. There was no doubt about that. And I just told you a couple of weeks ago how one time the light was coming through and I was crying a lot. And then it came to me that it was clearing the grief from my mother. My mother had passed, and I guess I must have had a lot of grief there that needed healed. So it was telling me that the light had came in and was healing that grief that I felt. So the light, when it would come in, it would go to directly what it needed to heal. You didn't have to, I didn't have to tell it anything. And then it just began to heal the area that you needed to heal. But okay, so then it would come through 216. Then I don't think it came through anymore. Maybe 217 a little bit, and like that. So it was periodically. It didn't come in all the time. One time it came in while I was driving and it was so overwhelming because again, you feel so much love. So I had to pull over at the side of the road because I was crying so bad I couldn't see for the tears in my eyes. So, and it was teaching me more and more and more about this light and how to, at the time, I don't think it taught me how to use it, just was teaching me. Since then, it has taught me a lot. But at that time, it was just about this light. I didn't know how at the time to, okay, yeah, it did reveal to me how to make it come in, how I can get it to come in. Yeah, it did show me that, how I could get it to come in and or just yeah, I'm trying to think back, but anyway, yeah, it did show me how I could get it to come in, and from there it just went on to teach me other things, and it's continuing to teach me, but all of the teaching was coming from within. When I would listen to other spiritual teachers and things that's on the planet, none of them talked about this this light. They would talk about maybe light, but not the light coming directly from the source. They didn't. Now, even if they said it was the light coming directly from the source, I knew that it wasn't. This light, I can't even explain it. It has love that you've never felt before. But I but if once you feel the light, you don't have any doubt. I mean, you know when you feel it again. It's I just can't explain. But like if I felt it today, and then you said you were bringing in the light, and I felt your light, I knew if that was the same light. You know what I mean? So anyway, I never. But some of the things that were being taught to me about the light, I just didn't hear anybody out here teaching it. They just weren't teaching about the light. Um, you know, so anyway, I'm going to go into a lot of that later on. And that's why I want to tell you a little bit about me, because I want to let you know. So because I was such a big believer in the Bible and things like that, um, it took 1 year. I do remember vaguely getting the message about something about telling me in the Bible that maybe everything with the Bible wasn't quite true. And I was getting things like that, but it wouldn't like drill on it. I was just, but it can't, but it was coming through like that, bits and pieces, like for a year, 1 year, before it really hit me to like, these are made up stories. You know, in the Bible, it's the greatest story ever told. It's made up stories. And then I think I seen something on the History Channel that was saying that two Jewish men had, in fact, written different things in the Bible and have, a lot of stuff wasn't true and things like that. Let me tell you something. When I really found out that the Bible was the greatest stories ever told, and it took a year for my God self to reveal the whole thing to me, because I guess they knew I would take it really hard. I cried for 1 year on and off. Like, how could you lie to a people? How could society do this to a people? Because I really, really believed in the Bible. I really did. And so it took me really a while and to understand that. And then, my God self stopped teaching me, not stop, but just slowed up a little bit, teaching me spiritual stuff, and then start teaching me about the earth, how it was controlled by a group of people, just things like that. It started teaching me so that I could understand why they did this, why they chose to control the people of the earth and teach them things that were not true, why they chose the people who control the planet, these families, why they choose to tell you the falsehood in the first place. So they had to show me that as to these families that's controlling the earth. I always had that feeling. And when I was a kid, I used to say, well, they don't want you to do this and that. And my mother used to say, who is they? And I would say, the people who control the earth. And my mother would be like, what are you talking about? What people that control the earth? I couldn't explain it to her because I just knew it from within that this was going on. But anyway, that information started coming to me. It started revealing some of the families that were behind this. And then it went back to the spiritual stuff. But I felt it was just to show me what was going on. Why? Because I was asking, like, who gave them the authority to be lying to people and all that. But it took me a year, really, because I felt to really understand it. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't understand the full totality of it, because I didn't want to believe that they had made up the story of Jesus. That would have just, oh my God, that's too much. You know what I'm saying? And so I just, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But as time went on, it was like several years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, bits and pieces started coming out about Jesus. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, okay, they're finna teach me something about Jesus. And then it went on to show me how in every religious, like Greece, Peru, India, Europe, what's this, Egyptian, they all put up the same biography of a man who died and rose in 3 days. The same exact thing. I'm going to do a video for you on that after this, so I won't go into that, but I'll tell you that later. But and it was the exact same thing. They are Jesus. So the qualities were that Jesus. Well, some of the things they told you about the Jesus was the same thing that the Egyptian god Horus. It was the exact same thing, and or the Krishna in India, the exact same thing, or Greece, the exact same thing, or Peru, the exact same thing. And then that made you wonder why in every religious they're putting up the same man with the same qualities. Everything is the same. Does that mean that this person does not exist? And then I started, doing research. I think I started doing research, following other researchers that had really spent more hours than I had spent in just researching, was Jesus real? I even went back to read some of the things that they had said about Jesus when he was a young boy, and I found that either the area they were talking about didn't exist back then, or some things didn't exist back then. And so it had to, where'd they get this from? If it didn't exist, where are you getting it from? So it was a lot of questions, about Jesus. But it came in bits and pieces. It's like it didn't just, the same way it did at the Bible. It's like it all wasn't bombarded on me. It just was bits and pieces. Give me a little time to think about that, put it together, and then continue on, like that. Because that one was going to really be even harder than the Bible, to digest, because it just, for me, it would have, it really would have been. So, it continued like God has continued even to this day to continue to teach me these things. You have to remove all the falsehood of the things that you've been taught so that you can allow the truth in. And what is it? It's a saying that the truth shall set you free. But one thing about me, I'm teachable. I'm not the type of person that if my inner self or if somebody say something, I'm just going to say, oh, that's not true. I know that's not true, X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? I'm always going to open it, listen, and then, take it to my higher self, which is my God self, to ask, is this true or this not true, or whatever the case might be. Some people just automatically close off. And you can't learn the truth if you're just going to say, I know that's not true, and you just close it off. I was talking to this lady once. We were talking about the Bible, and she was saying, well, the Bible was definitely written by God, and the men were under anointing. And I was disagreeing with her. Well, she was just very strongly, no, this is true. What I'm saying is true, very strongly like that. And you just have to leave people when they're like that, because they're not ready to learn. They're just not ready to learn. So we just have to face the fact that a lot of things that we've been told in this society has not been truthful things. So anyway, I'm going to end here, and I think that's the main things I want to tell you about me. You can always ask me a question and I'll answer it for you down in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.